Have you ever done something, not because you wanted to, but because you felt guilty if you didn't? You canceled your plans. Gave them your time. Said yes when every part of you screamed no. That wasn't kindness. That was control. And here's the twist: they didn't have to yell, threaten, or manipulate out loud. They used something far more powerful: guilt. Guilt tripping is one of the most subtle, toxic ways people control others. And the worst part? It works. Because we're wired to want connection. To avoid rejection. To keep the peace. Even if it means sacrificing ourselves in the process. Let's break down exactly how it works, and how to break free. It's not just someone saying, "I'm disappointed in you." It's the lingering silence after you set a boundary. It's the look they give you when you say no. It's the passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess I'll just suffer alone." Guilt tripping makes you question your own goodness. It flips the script: they're hurting, and somehow it's your fault. This tactic works especially well on empathetic, kind, peacekeeping people. If you were raised to prioritize others, to be the good kid, to keep everyone happy, you're especially vulnerable. Because guilt feels like failure. But here's the truth: guilt is not the same as wrongdoing. Feeling guilty doesn't always mean you did something bad. Sometimes, it just means you're doing something different, and someone doesn't like it. You may even find yourself replaying conversations, trying to figure out what you did wrong. You apologize even when you're not sure what you're apologizing for. You start to doubt your own needs. You compromise your values to avoid discomfort. And over time, this becomes your normal. You find yourself saying yes automatically. You feel physically uncomfortable when you try to stand up for yourself. You experience anxiety around setting boundaries. You fear being labeled as cold or unkind. You internalize others' reactions as proof of your failure. It's not just manipulation, it's emotional conditioning. You start to associate self-respect with selfishness. And that's how the cycle continues. Guilt tripping isn't random, it's psychological warfare. It targets your self-worth. Your fear of being seen as selfish, ungrateful, or cold. And most of the time, it's unspoken. You feel the shift in tone. You notice the sigh, the pause, the indirect jab. You internalize their disappointment, and turn it into obligation. Many guilt trippers don't even realize they're doing it. They've learned that guilt gets results. It's a strategy, often passed down through generations. But just because it's normalized, doesn't mean it's healthy. When guilt becomes a weapon, relationships turn into cages. You stop being honest. You stop choosing what's right for you. You live your life walking on emotional eggshells. You anticipate others' emotional reactions. You rehearse conversations to avoid disapproval. You over-explain simple decisions. You second-guess your own needs. You avoid asking for help to not seem demanding. Guilt becomes the background noise of your relationships. It's always there, a low hum that tells you, you're not doing enough. And over time, this pattern leaves you exhausted. Not just emotionally, but physically. You become hypervigilant, constantly trying to keep everyone else happy. But no matter how much you give, it's never enough. It doesn't always sound like an accusation. Sometimes it's subtle. "I guess I just don't matter to you. After everything I've done for you. If you really cared, you would." You feel pulled into a script where you're the villain, unless you cave. And when you resist, they escalate: tears, anger, silent treatment. You start to wonder, am I really that selfish? But here's the question you should be asking: is this a relationship, or a transaction based on guilt? Healthy love doesn't require self-erasure. Respect doesn't demand obedience. Kindness shouldn't feel like a trap. You begin to track patterns. When you say no, they become cold. When you assert yourself, they make you feel guilty. When you express your needs, they act hurt. You begin shrinking, hiding parts of yourself to avoid causing problems. Guilt tripping thrives in ambiguity. That's why naming it matters. When you can say, "This feels like guilt," you create space to respond, not react. Ask yourself, would this person still love me if I didn't comply? Would they respect my no? Or do they only feel close when I sacrifice myself? Real love accepts boundaries. Real connection honors autonomy. If your worth feels conditional, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. Start with this powerful truth: you are allowed to say no. Without explaining. without defending, without guilt. Set boundaries that protect your energy, not just the relationship. Notice when guilt is being used against you. Name it. I'm noticing I feel guilty, but I haven't done anything wrong. Reclaim your story. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not cruel for needing space. You are not broken for wanting freedom. You are not here to live a life of silent compliance. You are here to be whole. And people who truly love you will never ask you to betray yourself just to keep them comfortable. The more you choose authenticity over guilt, the more you step into your real power. And that's when you stop being controlled and start living free. Practice self-validation. Remind yourself that guilt is a feeling, not a fact. Create a mantra: my needs matter. Surround yourself with people who honor boundaries. Get support, therapy, coaching, community. Reflect on childhood messages around guilt. What did you learn about your worth? Rewire that narrative. Choose new beliefs. I can be loved and say no. I can protect my peace without apology. This is how healing begins. Guilt makes you feel like you owe someone something. Like your worth is tied to how much you sacrifice. So you overextend, overcommit, and constantly prioritize their comfort over your truth. But obligation is not love. If they only feel loved when you're bending over backwards, that's not connection, that's dependency. You are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions. You're allowed to be kind without being controlled. You're allowed to love without self-abandoning. Notice when your yes is driven by fear instead of freedom. That's the trap, when guilt turns into duty, and duty replaces joy. When that happens, you stop living your life and start performing someone else's script. The moment you realize guilt is not proof of wrongdoing, that's the moment you take your power back. Obligation drains your energy. It turns love into labor. It teaches you that connection must be earned, not given. But real love doesn't demand proof. You don't need to exhaust yourself to be worthy. You don't have to keep over-delivering to feel secure. You can choose balance. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to say, not right now. Start practicing small no's. Build your capacity for discomfort. Let people be disappointed, and stay grounded in your truth. Here's the twist: guilt can be your teacher. It shows you where your values live, where your boundaries need reinforcing, where healing needs to happen. Instead of obeying guilt, listen to it. Ask, is this guilt based on truth or training? Guilt trained you to comply, but awareness trains you to choose. When you pause, reflect, and respond instead of react, you rewrite the story. You become the person who doesn't shrink to keep others comfortable. You become the adult who protects the inner child that always felt responsible for everyone else's mood. Growth comes when guilt no longer controls you, but guides you. You can be thoughtful and free, loving and firm, giving and grounded. And that's not selfish. That's self-respect. Start journaling your guilt triggers. Reflect on what message each moment carries. Replace shame with curiosity. Learn from the emotion instead of obeying it. Create space between reaction and response. That space is power. That space is healing. Know this: guilt doesn't define your morality. Your integrity does. And your freedom starts when you stop mistaking guilt for goodness. If this message hit home, it's probably because you've spent too long putting everyone else first. But you're here now. You're waking up to patterns that no longer serve you. And that is powerful. You deserve to live a life led by truth, not guilt. A life that honors your voice, your choices, and your worth, without apology. If this video gave you a moment of clarity or comfort, consider subscribing. I create videos to help you heal what they never taught you to name. To unlearn what hurt you. And to remind you, you're not alone. Leave a comment if this resonated with you. Share your story. It helps others know they're not the only ones waking up to this. Hit like if you needed this today, and don't forget to subscribe for more content that supports your healing, boundaries, and growth. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And your freedom starts now.